Oh, the last two I'm gonna have to put a tie, unfortunately.
Yes, sir.
Gayton I'll put first, and I'll end with him. Mmusi Maimane came out of nowhere, which at a time when the EFF or the ANC Youth League was still strong before it became the EFF, you had to earn your stripes politically from ground activism. And so people like Mmusi Maimane, Lindiwe Mazibuko were parachuted into politics by the DA, the Freedom Front Plus. But the other guys are not that brilliant, and they don't articulate that well, and they don't speak to our hearts. And then last but not least, they don't have the credentials of fighting for us as the face. I don't believe in democracy as a concept, mostly because democracy is premised on an assumption that we all generally have the same information. We're all generally politically, maybe economically, maybe even legally literate to some degree. And the reality, in my opinion, is that over 95% of people are incredibly politically illiterate, definitely economically illiterate. A lot of them struggle with understanding the law. So asking them to vote is like giving a toddler a loaded gun and saying you can choose if you want to shoot or not. Very dangerous. The Freedom Charter was drafted, and most people don't know that there was a lot of Jewish contribution to the Freedom Charter. If you ever go look it up on Wikipedia, you'll see the authors of the Freedom Charter. It's not just a bunch of black people. There's white people there, sadly, but it is what it is. The Freedom Charter had ideals, which we've also been force-fed that those were black ideals. They weren't really black ideals. To be honest, it's very clear to figure out. The reason I would get tired of black people is because there would be so many solutions for black people to, outside of politics, get the things they claim they want, like land. You want land? I can take you to KZN, you can get 10 hectares now. We can go and thank a chief. Thank him with maybe a bit of money. Siyabonga ndaba ezitha.
Political incorrect. You know, I've got a boss who's called Mlotsa, and every time I want to call Mlotsa, I always confuse it. But that's the Mlotsa and Mlotsa.
You know, the sad thing is I don't even know the true origin of my surname. We speculate, and obviously I was raised Zulu, and I've got a Zulu heritage, but there's rumors that we may have come from the Sotho people. And if ever that's true, then maybe it's Mlotswa. But I know it's Mlotswa, and it's what I was taught, so that's what I know. Njati, thank you so much for welcoming me.
Say someone who was once a Zulu person.
Yes.
So, Penuel, Kinale, the icebreakers. Ne? So what I'm going to do is, so I usually throw 2 and then you pick. But when because of Penuel, I've organized 3 of them. By the way, so here's my pen. Everything more. The slate is clean, and that's how I hope everything's going to roll. Shoot immediately now. So Bukwe, Biko, or Luthuli, picking order. Who would you prefer the best? And then so top 3.
Definitely Biko first. So Bukwe second, Luthuli last. But I have to add that it's because my knowledge on Luthuli is extremely limited. But from an intellectual capacity and from a true passion for the liberation of the black man, I think those 2 guys at the top are key. With that being said, Sobukwe is arguably the most active, but I think Ubiko, just in terms of his ideologies and his plans with the black community programs, definitely my number 1.
Okay. Relevule Mufukeng.
Hey.
Sasha Mgweme Zulu, Kwena Mapak.
Jeez. Am I picking?
Yeah, you're picking your best 3. This is the future. This is the future.
It's again?
Relebule Mufukeng, Sasha Mgweme Zulu, Kwena Mapak.
It's biased because I'm a rugby guy. Sasha Feinberg Mgome Zulu. With that, he's got good credentials because he represents white and black. And he's a nice guy, man. Very, very friendly guy. Incredibly talented. And he also ticks some of the boxes because he's a true bowler. He's also a football player as well.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Number 2?
Rile
or Kwena?
Probably Urile. Superstar, great family, everyone loves him. So I'd have to. I know a lot of parents saying keep him away from girls,
Yeah, no.
which I also fully support. Hey, because the girls will end your career fast, end your money.
Okay, so when Amapaka gets it last, Malema, Zuma, Mandela.
For the future of my... Hey, this one's difficult.
Of course.
This one's very difficult because one represents the past, one represents a recent past, and one is potentially the future. If I had to put money on someone, I'd put money on Malema because he's the future.
Okay.
Also, Malema is one of the most influential young people of our generation. The other guys are from other generations, so it's difficult to say. With that being said, the one is a global icon. The other one is a serious rebel. But honestly speaking, if anyone's ever watched my podcasts, it would definitely be Jacob Zuma first,
Okay.
Julius Malema second, and Nelson Mandela last. Even though Mandela is the biggest icon and he is responsible, or he's the face of the privileges we have today.
Of course, they want to know why Mandela last. You see, this one is a difficult one, like you started. This one is a difficult. Why would you put Mandela last? With all he's got bigger credentials. And by the way, I just wanted to take 3 generations.
Yes.
And I thought, let me just put 3 generations.
No, you did very well. Look, Zuma straddles the Mandela era because he spent time in Robben Island.
Yeah.
So you can take a bit with
Is the intermediate kadale
credentials, whereas Malema didn't. With that being said, look, Uzuma's a highly controversial character politically. And a lot of the way he moved, a lot of the ways in which he moved upsets a lot of people, understandably so. With that being said, for me personally, the impact that he made on me reminds me of people that are willing to stand up to power, no matter how unfavorable it is, of which is why Julius becomes second. Mandela is a young Mandela. If you were putting him as an offer with these 3, he'd probably be my number 1. But we're speaking about post 1990 Mandela, and at that point he was an old man. He was very easy to convince, and as much as he had good ideas and ideals for the future of this country, and he gave us the tools to fix this country for ourselves, a lot of the compromises that were made were not made consulting the people. They were made consulting a few guys who already were licking their lips in terms of what was potentially on the table. Zuma could have taken the same route. I think there was money on the table, especially after Umbe, but he chose to be a stubborn Zulu man, and he stood up against capital in a way that almost every person would never do, which just takes a lot. It really takes a lot. Julius Malema was my favorite young leader. Some of his utterances and some of his arrogance is why he'd come second and not first, because Zuma, in the way he moves, would still listen to the people. He still represents an African leader. The other guys, I think, become more polished, educated. Malema used to be a ground soldier, but now he's got a degree and he's lost weight and he dresses in nice clothes. So, yeah, Mandela would have to come last, but he's actually the father of modern day South Africa, and we have to give him the utmost respect.
Okay. This one, tongue in cheek.
Wait, you don't get to pick. I don't.
No, I don't. No, I don't.
This is not fair.
No, I don't. I can just. No, I don't. Okay. Jesus, Muhammad, and Penuel.
Oh, come on.
Deliberate. Because I want them to say, Maram Fanunana Upala Jesu. This deliberate.
No, thank you. Honestly speaking, Jesus Christ.
Okay.
I am not a Christian. And funny enough, I was having this conversation earlier today that as much as I'm not a Christian, I admire Jesus Christ very much because, in the previous question, you asked about me ranking those leaders, and this guy is the most famous leader that stood up to power. Many Christians have forgotten what he actually stood for. He was willing to fight authority. He was willing to destroy property if needs be. He was willing to hang around people that were deemed unfavorable. He believed in peace and love. He believed in feeding people. He believed in healing people. And he managed to convince people on the ground to follow him. That is something really big. Muhammad becomes a prophet, and he would be a very good and almost perfect example of what Allah would want from an Islamic man or a man of God in the world. But Jesus in his rebelliousness cannot be, it's almost difficult to compare. People like myself, people like Tupac, people like Steve Biko, Mangaliso Sobukwe, Nelson Mandela, all of these guys who are deemed rebellious, there's an origin somewhere, and the most famous one is definitely Jesus Christ. And then Upenzo, I unfortunately this time would have to come last. Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to stretch it. Gaten, Floyd, my money.
This is a great list. This is the most difficult of the lists. Woo! Do I go for a criminal or a political? I can't use bad words, but he's been around the block
Now he's a doctor now.
The doctor now, the radio teacher.
My money. My
Oh,
money
is a doctor now.
Yeah.
Gaten.
Where what?
Oh, the last two I'm gonna have to put a tie, unfortunately.
Issa.
Gaten I'll put first, and I'll end with him. Musi Maimane came out of nowhere, which at a time when the EFF or the ANC Youth League was still strong before it became the EFF, you had to earn your stripes politically from ground activism. And so people like Musi Maimane, Lindiwe Mazibuko were parachuted into politics by the DA and Helen Zille, which it felt like a cheat. And it looked like coconuts who were selling out. But even with that background, what Musi Maimane managed to do in building a political career for himself and be relevant and work on the ground and later on leave the DA on principle and build his own party, Build One South Africa, which would manage to raise funds, manage to win seats in parliament, I think it has to be acknowledged very, very much. Floyd Shibambu has not currently, we don't know where Maibuya is going. He has not been able to build a political party from scratch, so Musi beats him in that. But he has been part of activism from a young age with the Youth League and the likes. He was there with Malema. These are guys that we love and we respect. He's an incredible intellectual. He is incredibly well versed economically, even globally. And he seems very brilliant at structuring political parties. He did it at the EFF. He did it with Umkhonto weSizwe at a time when they didn't have good structures, which means with Imaibuya, when it becomes a political party, not if, when, he's going to be able to, in his sleep, be able to build the structures at the very least. But with that, man, the way he's moved with the EFF and MK, it looks a bit bitter. We also don't know how strong he is politically on his own. He hasn't been able to prove that I can get seats on my own. It's going to be difficult to see how strong his constituency is, where Maimane managed to build a constituency from the DA. Very exemplary. So I'll put those two guys there. Gaten Mackenzie is an ex-convict. He's a criminal, a bad criminal. So, hey, you know, it's a no. But, yes, this is a fact. But the reality is, from having that type of background, we're not speaking he was in jail because he was a freedom fighter. So he can't be like, I was like Mandela. No. This was a bad guy. But he managed to see the error of his ways. He came out, he put in work. He went around schools teaching kids about the dangers of crime. Don't be like me. He sold books with Kenugunene. From there, they went into business with ZA. They managed to hustle their way into mining rights, which I think is still the bulk of his wealth. And then he decided to make a foray into politics. And I mean, who's going to vote for a criminal? On the ground, colored people didn't have a voice, and he became a voice for coloreds. But he managed to be so powerful in moving people and saying things that people wanted to hear. Of which, in my opinion, Herman Mashaba started the real work of speaking about illegal foreigners when he was mayor of Johannesburg under the DA. But he hijacked that and it became Abahambe, as Gaten Mackenzie and the PA are saying, you know, illegal foreigners must go. And again, being able to, with that background, win seats in parliament, be able to win the hearts of coloreds, be able to convince some black people, and also be able to win the ears of some white people, especially white capital, I think is a talent. Outside of pre-1990, pre-94, if Gaten Mackenzie had come out of prison with someone like a Cyril Ramaphosa, Cyril would never have been able to get to where he is today. Gayton can't say he was handpicked by the Oppenheimers and he studied law and he knows how to speak good English. He doesn't have that. But to be able to be a minister and to be able to court the same attention and to be in these conversations as if he's been in politics for that long, sometimes we actually have to just study these guys, because there's a lot that many of us can learn, even if you don't like their character, their decisions, etc. So for me, he's definitely better than a Maimane and a Floyd, if I had to rank them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Jeez.
Skag Baker, Dr. Khumalo, Sean Pollock.
This icebreaker must end at some point. Like, oh,
You extended just quite quick and then we leave.
Skullburger?
Dr. Khumalo, Sean Pollock. Quick rank.
Sean Pollock is definitely lost.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that's because I'm not a big cricket guy, and I apologize to Polly. He's a great South African icon. I'd put other names there, maybe. Who's this? This guy. He's my favorite South African cricketer. Jacques Kallis. Sorry.
Yeah.
If you put Jacques Kallis there, for me it would have been more difficult. But Sean Pollock, I'll put last, and I apologize to him. Skullburger and Dr. Khumalo are unfair comparisons because Dr. Khumalo, unrivaled in that list when you speak about South Africans as a whole, because we are a football nation. We may not be successful internationally, but we are a football crazy nation. So V6, V12, V16,
V60.
V16,
16 valve.
come on, man. And like a Lucas Radebe, he managed to transcend as a player and become respectable in soccer as a fraternity at that level. I'm not aware, I could be wrong, of any serious scandals, of which a lot of the soccer guys would have scandals and they'd move in a funny way. He's respected his brand, at least from where I stand, very, very much. So I respect to Doctor. And almost the opposite of the previous question, I'd maybe have to put them equal with Skullburger. Skullburger's won a World Cup. He joined the Springboks at a very young age. He represents the legacy of Springboks. His father, Skullburger Sr., also played for the Springboks. They are business people, but he's a great gentleman. He could have chosen to go into cricket, by the way. A lot of people may not know this. Very nice guy as well. Also similar to Sean Pollock. If it wasn't Skullburger and if you put like Siya Kolisi and maybe Lucas Hart, it was going to be tough. If you put Brian Habana there, so I'd let them share. I don't think Good Doctor is my top South African football icon. I don't think Skullburger is my top rugby icon. But at their levels, respectively or respectfully, yeah, I'd put them equal.
Okay, thanks. So the list was just, it's a second generation players. Show you how their fathers played. Sean Pollock, his father and uncle.
Okay, no, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, I just hold them there
They're
because
great icebreakers, by the way.
yeah. Does body count matter
Body count with rugby, with cricket, or
in life?
how many bodies are sitting in parliament?
In life,
Body count matters. Body count matters a lot, but not in the way that maybe people think about it. You know, all of us have a history, and you know, we spoke about Gayton McKenzie, and you shouldn't be judged by your history because you're young. You make mistakes, there are opportunities, you're trying to figure life out, sadly. The problem with body count, I'm assuming we're speaking sexually now, is the more people you meet, the more people you get intimate with, the more it affects your chemical setup, your psychological setup. I mean, if you're a woman now, you start comparing. By the time you decide to get married, and this for men and women, but specifically for women, because they still want us with this balobole. By the time you find the one, the man you're meant to submit to for the rest of your life, the comparisons in the history and the fact that other men have enjoyed what is meant to be sacred for your husband, and similarly for your wife, that other women have enjoyed. The woman can walk with the husband in the streets and woman like, oh, this one, we know this one, futile, last 5 minutes. Is quite disrespectful. And again, the comparison thing where now when you have to go to this union of intercourse and maybe making children, you're now comparing this woman intimately with other women, which is kind of unfair. Body count matters mostly to men because even in 2025, a woman's purity is still what determines her value. A woman's money doesn't determine her value. She can be Oprah Winfrey and be a billionaire. Men don't measure a woman's worth by her money. Looks go a long way, definitely. Looks for a man are the interview process because we are hunters. So I must be hunting prey I can see there. Whereas women, looks are not that high of a priority for men. It's nice for a guy who looks good. But women want provision. So a man who can provide, who when we arrive in a space, someone needs to get the equipment, someone needs to pay for something, someone needs to Umashian is there. It's like, oh no, this guy I feel some type of way. Providing resources, providing security, and providing leadership become the things that you measure a man on. So with that, a woman, unlike a man, doesn't care that much, honestly, about how many women you've been with, because that is not how she measures your value. But for a man, I want to know that you haven't been with a lot of men or any men at all, which means you're genuinely a prized possession that I want. You are a virgin or virgin territory, or you are pure. We haven't changed. I know there's a drive to change how we view these things, but in the real world out there, that's still the case.
The reason I'm dropping this is our history. It was a very difficult history. You know, when Mandela was discampaigned using such things,
Yes.
They wanted her body count to matter. They wanted her, they scandalized her on things that men won't be suffering even if you drop him. I mean, Jacob Zuma survived a lot
Yes.
of the dead. And a case in point is, Mampela Rampela. In politics, they would say she's known as Steve Biko's side chick.
That's correct.
So this is deliberately to drop her political credentials as if she did not participate fully. Does this body count or any debt put on a woman, is it the reason why we do not have female, even freedom fighters, who then ascend to power based on their credentials? What is it about? Because I mean, they suffer the same scandals. They are both crooks. They are conniving. But chairs, get a chairs, master Jacob Zuma style. But female, even in the ANC, you hardly ever find women going all out to support a female candidate. They tried a few times. So what is it about female, and why are we not ready to produce one? A female leader, the one that everyone could, because Helen Zille is the top one as we speak, so the most powerful, and Renabo Daki would not have any. Why is it?
That's sad, eh? You're very right. I want to highlight that point again. Helen Zille is the top female politician in the country, and she just so happens to not be black, and she just so happens to have parents that were immigrants in South Africa. Very interesting. Very interesting. It's definitely, in my opinion, this is my personal opinion, has nothing to do with body count at all. The decampaigning definitely happens, and I could almost argue that the same way Mamwini Matigizela Mandela would be decampaigned, there was an attempt with Jacob Zuma, there was an attempt with Amalusi.
It doesn't work on men.
No. I'm going to this point of they attempt the decampaigning.
Yes.
Even with the Cyril Ramaphosa cupcake, with the Gwede Mantashe being a tiger. They try, but I don't think body count matters, is what I'm trying to say. So I don't think Jacob Zuma, it affected him. I don't think Umamwini, it affected her, the body count in terms of leadership.
Okay.
I do think before her passing, in my opinion again, it's just she wasn't searching for titles and positions. I do think Umamwini was the most powerful politician we had. There have been arguments lately in terms of black being Umamna Lady Pando. Many people have found a lot of favor with her, especially standing up, supporting Palestine against Israel and the like, and not mincing her words. Why do women not vote for other women? Is a very important question. Why do women not buy from female-led businesses? Why do women not work for female-led companies? I think the argument, very uncomfortable, is merit. I don't think we currently have women that are good enough. And I'd make a similar argument for black people. The political one is easy to see because black people in this country are very good at politics. we're good at talking, we're very charismatic, we do the singing and the dancing. You compare a Julius to a John Steenhuisen, it's a no contest in the game of politics. White people are very boring, very stiff politicians, so almost like a dance challenge, they can't win. And then when it comes to your point of order and the understanding, I mean, we speak about intellectualism, Abo Floyd Shibambu. It's difficult to find white counterparts. Maybe I'll mention a Corneille Mulder as an example at the Freedom Front Plus, but the other guys are not that brilliant and they don't articulate that well and they don't speak to our hearts. And then last but not least, they don't have the credentials of fighting for us as the face. You put women in there and that becomes the problem. The same dynamic. If you were to imagine a woman that, but before I go to the woman, let's maybe do the opposite to politics. Because what happens is black men dominate politics and white men don't. But now when you come to business, white men dominate and black men don't. And again, it goes back to merit. Because if you look at black-run businesses in the main, our legacies unfortunately kept us out of mainstream business. Number two, we haven't learned the etiquette. So a lot of people complain about the services of black businesses, the stock that's short. Whenever you try to complain, they're like, aye, you're not the target market. There isn't that care because we haven't been trained that well into being business savvy. And maybe we don't have the brutality of capitalism as well, which white entrepreneurs would have. Black person is holding a pen, has to vote, blackface. And then he walks out and then he's got money he needs to buy. He buys from the white person. I think it's merit-based, to be honest. I don't think they're racist when they buy from white businesses. I don't think they're racist when they vote for black politicians. I think it's merit. Now you bring women into that and maybe we can start with business. And that one, it's very comparable to the black man, where the black women also haven't had a chance to ingrain themselves in business and. Then we come to the politics. Black women in this country are phenomenal singers. It's weird that they don't sing and lead songs politically as they do maybe in the church. Because that would be one of the ways to win the hearts, like Umsholozi would do. Imagine young female activists that you always call them to the front, not a machita to start the ingoma, but a woman to sing where we sometimes just keep quiet and you're just listening to this lady singing struggle songs and you just find yourself crying and you're like, anywhere we go, chief, we're going with this lady, number one. Number two, politics, especially militant politics, became a very masculine space. That's why Abu Mamwini came strong. Abu Mamulindi Zulu would come strong. Maybe I'd mention Mamu Ayanda Jojo, and I'm sure there's others I'm forgetting now. They were trained in guerrilla warfare and they became masculine to a point where it's like, I can shoot a gun. I'm not scared of any man. So you can trust me to lead you against Trump or Putin, etc. A similar thing happens in business. A lot of black women that get ahead tend to have masculine traits. I think that's a mistake. I think if women want to dominate in politics, so I spoke about the singing just as an example. I'll mention another surface example, but dress sense. Women are beautiful. The way they dress, their fashion, if they were to do that, trust, those things would stick in their heads. This is why when we go to like an Instagram or what, you see merit again. Guys are not going to like other men's pictures. Well, besides looks and being gay, but you like the
Wait.
appealing.
Besides look or being
gay.
Oh, okay.
They won't like your pictures. Mashian is always liking this guy's pictures.
Oh,
You want to tell us something?
okay.
So in the way the woman presents themselves, no one cares if Ukwere Mantashe is wearing a suit that's big. And may rest in peace, Utito Mboweni with dirty shoes. Yeah. But there is something about a woman, and I apologize for using Umama's name, but I'll use it because it's relevant. Umama Enje Motsecha. The way she presents herself wouldn't be inspiring for someone who's like, we want a woman who kind of situation. So that's also another surface level. But female leadership in its essence is not masculine, it's feminine. And in this country, as much as we call Mamwini, and Julius Malema would be like, give us a signal, mama, and she'd look after the soccer boys. If you want a female leader, you need a mother, not a father with a vagina. Which again, if you're trying to compete, you're not going to win. Because the men are naturally men. It's like black guys trying to be white leaders. You're not white, chief.
So in in dressing their leadership style,
Yes.
you think they come across as too masculine,
Yes.
and
I
it
think
sets people off.
If
Maybe
they were,
even other women off.
100%. I think if they were more feminine and warm, and whenever it comes to decision making, they firm. Whenever it comes to solving problems, they solve them, but the way your mother would solve them. And you're like, no, we're going somewhere here. We see all these other guys, but whenever there's a street fight and guys are about to stab each other, there's only one person who can stop that without a weapon, and that's an older woman. She comes in and she shouts at them. She can shout at taxi guys, and I can tell you now, if ever any of those guys were to harm her, other men would harm these guys, because there's something valuable there. So if you come into a space and you're trying to solve problems, you're like, I know these other guys are using guns. I want to go and speak to Trump. And you're like, hey, I wonder who Mama's going to say. And when she gets there, she's like, listen here, my son, this thing you're doing is not right. It's upsetting me. It's upsetting all. Hey, you'd sit there and be like, but these women here. But you'd feel something, because she'd be using her superpower.
Not Trump.
Would Trump respects his daughter?
Mm-hmm.
It's debatable, but he listens to his woman. Would Trump finds... This is where now we speak racism. The reason he finds comfort in disrespecting a Kamala Harris is because she was presenting as masculine.
You reckon?
Yeah, but she was presenting as feminine. I mean, Trump used to, I don't know if he used to own Miss Universe or something like that. The way he'd speak to those women, they smiling, oh, Mr. Trump, oh, have you been working out?
But what to touch?
I'm trying to explain that that's their superpower. And if you had a leader like that, I can't think top of my head of a woman. I wish I could, where if you say to Trump, hey, Kim Kardashian wants to talk, he's like, hey, why does a pretty lady want to talk to me? Like, oh, already you're disarmed, chief. Then she comes there smelling nice, looking good. She's like, oh, president, you know, and you've only been marrying like hot models. And he's like, yeah, well, you're like, this guy's not concentrating. And then she starts laying the things on the table. This is what needs to be solved. And he might try and catch himself, but we've already exposed these weaknesses, just as an example. Bonom Sholozi, for example, are soft. We can see this. So I really think the reason, it's not body count, the reason women struggle in leadership is because they're trying to play in a game as white men, because they feel that's what is the pinnacle. But I think their power source is if they were to actually come as black women, specifically the black woman. Helen Zille, as the example of the #1 female politician, is extremely masculine. Extremely. She's not soft. She's not, and look, she's killed it in the game. She's very good at it. But I think when we support the women in business, we'll buy from all mama that are selling us food.
You know Joan of Arc?
Yes.
I mean, a mask was taken off very quickly, and they realized, oh, this is just a bonju. And of course, it didn't end well. The Iron Lady, Margaret Thatcher.
Yes.
I mean,
masculine.
Yes. I think, this is just me, I think there's no other way of convincing people without using force.
Cleopatra.
Well, then we go into the body count kind of things. You go to Delilah kind of things.
But she managed to disarm a Caesar without being masculine. And look, arguably, this is a woman who now set wars. Helen of Troy. These become powerful women. I mean, if you look at what men have built, you speak about the Statue of Liberty, which is a woman. You look at the Taj Mahal, which was built as a symbol
Love
to a woman, etc. I'm just saying women have extreme power when they use feminine energy. And I've got no issue with women being masculine. That's okay. But just understand that as a woman, if you're showing up in a masculine way, no, you're giving me permission to hit masculine. If you show up feminine, I don't know what that means.
Oh.
If you show up and you're giving me a plate of food and you're like, Baba, I see you're hungry. And while I'm busy chewing, you're like, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to paint that room. No, you're beating me in what you're good at.
Sure.
And I'm just saying, I think in terms of just leadership, I'm just trying to... Let me speak about Zuma as a good example. Zuma's got a cult following largely not for political reasons. The political reasons are fine and we can debate them with others and compare. But some of the touch points become istem, which is symbolic for a lot of guys who say this is an African man practicing his Africanness. He'd get to spaces and he'd sing, something that we do. He's not ashamed. Nelson Mandela's funeral, the entire world is watching and he's like, Tina siyak ulala. And I will do it unashamed to show the rest of you who we are. He would dance. Arguably, even this thing of school, which many would try, like body count, to try and use to decampaign him, it became a power source, which was a power source for Malema, by the way, at some point. I'm not sure if he's aware of it. Where people that were uneducated, undereducated, or maybe your mother, your grandfather that you respect and love were uneducated, but you knew they were wise. And you're like, we don't need a white person to tell us that you're smart with a certificate. We know. So this becomes powerful. You are president of a country. You travel the whole world. You sit with PhDs. But aufundanga, because you're showing them, which as an African, I don't need your colonial verification or validation. So I'm just saying some of the things that made him powerful were those things. Proudly Zulu. He's built a compound in Nkandla, which of course was scandalous and money was looted there. You know, he worships the currency of cattle. To many people, symbolically, that does something to you, such that even when there are other scandals on the side, you hold on to this, but this is an African man. Compared to the next leader who's trying to speak to you, like this guy only speaks English. This guy, we don't even know if he has a wife or not. This guy, when white people come, he's very quick to like, well, I've got a PhD from, and you're like, no, this guy is not our guy. So I'm saying with women, if you had the type of woman, of which Umamwini was actually brilliant later on, outside of fighting, Ndingumama, and when I speak to you, listen to me as your mother. Yes, I know we're fighting a lot of things, but listen to me. I love you, I care for you, I want you to come, let me wipe your mouth there quickly. Like, what can you do? I mean, a leader as aggressive as Julius Malema submits. Julius doesn't submit to anyone. Not Zuma, not Ramaphosa, not anyone. At times, he'd even utter that Mandela was sellouts. He'd never say that about Winnie. It's like, hey, chief, hey. Yeah, but your mother, hey, Baba, hey, that's my mother. Sure, yeah, maybe she did some things, but hey, can we change the tone? That becomes a power source. In my opinion, the alternative of that is to raise our daughters to become more masculine and then to try and earn their credentials in terms of activism on the ground. You've got now Zandile Tabula with Operation Duduzile and the like. So I don't know how that manifests, but I'm telling you on merit only. It's very difficult for a woman to compete with a man in a masculine space. And if they brought feminine into that space, I think we'd be having a different conversation.
Okay. There's a term called Gushi revolutionary. Are you white?
Yes.
So when they say Gushi revolutionary, it's meant to hurt the political image of the person. You said people would then vote ANC, Black Party, Black Unity, Ngrimnyama. Yeah. When they leave, pops out money, buy and support deliberately an entity that espouses whiteness. And sometimes because of there are no more choices, like you say, you can't blame them. This thing of, they called it conspicuous consumption. These people are eaters. I mean, they would eat just about anything. They would have, like the mansions, Paul Mashatile. Like, for what? Yeah. This is me being poor asking that. But they know why they want these things. But I don't understand why people would wear 200,000 worth of clothes. Yes. Calling it Gushi they print. Is it futile? Do you think because it doesn't upset people because they keep voting for the same people? And what is it about this Gushi thing if you compare it with our priorities changed? Yeah. Because Gushi is not ours, and these guys are making sure that they want to be seen as not ordinary because they wear this thing, because they do not want to give options. You know, Sankara said, before they kill me, these clothes that I'm wearing come from Burkina Faso. They were sewn by Burkinabe wool and stuff, and of course they took him out. These comrades who wear Gushis, are they afraid to rip because the revolution is not one-sided? It's just to change the whole kind of system. What are you feeling about Gushi revolutionaries?
There's a very deep psychological explanation for the Gucci's and the mansions. And it's something that many black people understand. They may not support it as well, but they understand it. One of my favorite writers is a gentleman called Mark Manson. He's got a blog online, I think it's markmanson.com if I'm not mistaken. And he writes a piece about how you make your money is how you spend your money. So if you make your money being a boxer or a rugby player, a lot of that money is going to go to your physical upkeep. You have to pay medical aid, you have to get stitches and surgery and the like. If you make your money maybe working in a high stressful environment like trading, a lot of those guys end up having to undergo therapy. Some end up taking drugs like cocaine just to manage their mental state because they're in a high stress environment. And he suggests that you need to find a healthy way to make money so that you don't have to spend your money in an unhealthy way. One of the examples he makes in that blog is there are people that work in spaces that they find demeaning. Clean toilets, you're a street sweeper, you're a security guard, you're a domestic worker, a maid, girl. A lot of those people you find when they make a little bit of money, they as soon as they knock off, they take off their uniform and they very quickly get into Zille and Nike. And a lot of the women, they put on their nails and you mustn't see that I'm a street sweeper or I clean toilets. I want to move as far away from that as possible because it attacks my dignity, the work that I do. So you'll find a lot of black people chase this opulent life to try and seek validation from the world. Who would say, I'm not poor, look at what I'm wearing. Not because they aren't poor, but because they don't want to wear poverty on their face. Christo Visa, who founded PEP, would speak about this because at a time when second-hand clothes were the thing, working with Ranier van Rooyen, who founded PEP, their idea was to say we want affordable new clothes, especially for the majority, because for some kids, buying clothes at PEP is the first time I'm wearing brand new. Before that, I'd only gotten clothes from my older brother, older sister, or second-hand. So now I got something new with a tag. So it gave people some level of dignity, that thing. So psychologically, there's a lot of black people in this country that are still seeking external validation. Whether it's in the clothing that they wear, whether it's in their academic qualifications, whether it's because you've been overseas, someone knows you overseas. This guy's a big DJ because they've been America. And you're like, but why do you need America to tell you what's good music? Pacey Dow's playing overseas. You don't need that validation. We're good enough here. Where the opposite of that are people that don't need external validation. Some of them is because they come from wealthy families. So they've been exposed to money their whole lives. They are friends with very powerful, influential people. So they're like, oh, Uncle Mashian used to be president. So I'm used to having like important people in my house. There was another example I wanted to make, but I wanted to go to, there comes a culture of wealth which becomes silent wealth, sort of, where I'm wearing a top with no name. But a certain elite group in the world knows that that's the latest Pharrell design and it goes for $50,000. But I don't need validation from the streets. There's other people that see what I'm doing. I'm driving an old Mercedes Benz. Like, this guy drives an old car. Like, hey, chief, there's only 10 of these cars in the world. This is a collector's edition. You don't know what this guy is. So there's that type of culture which people like Othabo Mbeki come from. Going to study in London, picking up, well, Amakos, I know also smoke pipe, but the smoking of the pipe, being a English gentleman, let's have high tea, and which is another form of, there are people that are in the arts where you sell paintings for R1 million. Different culture. There I can wear a torn t-shirt like I'm a Yeezy. I can walk barefoot. I get into a meeting like Elon Musk or Richard Branson. I'm barefoot. I'm just wearing a shirt, but I'm meeting dignitaries. And to other people, there's a culture there of Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs. These guys are so wealthy. Money to them means nothing. Their validation comes from, your app is so brilliant. your Tesla vehicle is the best in the world. So their validation comes from somewhere else. But for the ordinary black person, it's, I need to be light-skinned. I need to have a big palm. I need to get a lot of likes. Prada. Do you know? So that becomes the thing. And maybe for Abo Paul Mashatile, and look, this is me speaking generally. I don't know specifically their decisions. For Abo Paul Mashatile, there's a psychology of, we want to move in the suburbs. Why can't we live there where the whites are staying? But I don't want to stay in a back room. I don't want to stay in a small house. They want to say, oh, the blacks have arrived. They live in that poorer area. You're like, no. You know the biggest house in the neighborhood, the biggest. Yeah, that was black owned. Mm-hmm. So what now? But it becomes a validation thing. Because people that don't need that don't do that. Which again goes back to why some people would like a Zuma. And maybe we can mention a Mandela and a Mbeki. Those guys will not, look at me, I'm doing, their validation came from somewhere else. So which Mbeki's validation, in my opinion, had a lot to do with his intellectualism. He wanted to be seen as highly read, very well-traveled, very cultured. If someone else was criticizing him on that, he'd be very offended. But if they were to criticize Tito Mboweni on his shoes, he'd be like, I don't care. Rather tell me I'm not smart. Hey, then you're offending me. Mm-hmm. Rather tell you Zuma, you're not a real Zulu man. That's a real Zulu man. Then you're like, hey, Babu, Ushuktin are not a real Zulu. He'd be offended. But if you tell him, Baba, these shoes, he's like, these white things, I don't even 20 rand this thing. So Malema becomes that. But the one thing he's also said in an interview is, and this was now Tambo would also echo, the education and maybe the conspicuous is, let's not make it fashionable and make it cool that if you're a politician, if you're a public servant, you have to look and dress poor. Yes, there's that Sheikh Guevara, Thomas Sankara, now Ibrahim Traore type of, let's wear a beret and what. That's fine. But that can't be the only example we set up. It can't just be that the only leaders are uneducated. No. I'll wear a beret and I'll wear an overall in parliament. I'm not ashamed. I'll represent you. But also I want you to see that I can wear a tuxedo and look clean and wear an expensive watch. I can be both. I can sit there, speak my language, I think it's Spedi, say whatever I want, not need validation from the white man. But if ever the white man wants to challenge me here, no, chief, we can speak English as well. Hit me with those words. I know them. I've read the books and I'm qualified. So whatever you bring, don't think you can only hit me in one way. Becomes the counter argument. For me personally, I would love black is beautiful. I'm black and I'm proud. Was slogans to try and affirm black people at the time when they were denigrated, when they were spoken down to at a time. Oh, you're black. And in America, the black Americans would be, I'm black and I'm proud, and get kids in schools be like, I'm black and I'm proud. Wear your afro proudly, like love yourself. I would love for black people to stop seeking external validation. Stop wearing the names of Europeans on your clothing and think you've arrived. When we today have African names on clothing, you can wear those. Wear your own clothes from where you come from home. Be proud of them. This is you. Everyone else in the world, the Muslims, the Nigerians, they wear their clothes proudly. Why can't you do the same? You're still sucking up to someone. You don't need their validation.
March, strike, protest, picketing. Does it help? Has it helped? I want you to juxtapose it with the whole narrative and national dialogue where Mbeki was leading the charge of this legacy organization, saying a national dialogue must be there, national dialogue. And I've seen even Tokyo has been crying about national dialogue. What is to be done? 31 years later, these guys want to claim they were not ready to govern. They don't know what is it that we want. Started with protest, strike, like during the week, people are filling up buses and they are going to strike. Started there.
It makes me sad that we are still protesting in the streets. It's very primitive. It's very backwards. And it's condescending and patronizing to black people. I think we're much smarter than that, and we should be. There's obviously the legacies of the struggle and apartheid. This is what we used to do. when white people don't want to listen, we shut everything down, close everything down. And at that time, in the context, it was number one, it was the best. But today, black people have got other more powerful currencies. Labor, money. If you look at some of the most advanced people in the world, I mean, they vote with, they call it voting with your feet. They stop buying from a certain place. They stop supporting a certain thing, and we should be there. But I'm fully aware that our politicians, a lot of them are still hung over with that way of politic. A lot of the unionists still like that as a form of expression. It's visible. It brings the media because we want to be seen. But with that being said, it's performative because you're still begging for someone to listen to you. You don't actually see that you're powerful yourself. When you're protesting and marching and closing roads, you are hoping that by making other people uncomfortable, something will be done. Instead of, these are rumors I've heard, that I've read about. The Jewish community, when they feel offended by certain institutions, let's call it a business, they meet together, they figure out what's wrong, they try to engage and see if there's some way to salvage. And if not, then they fundraise, then they buy that business, and it either becomes Jewish owned or they collapse it. To say, you will not disrespect us. We'll find ways to buy you and to destroy your company that your family has built over 10 generations just to prove to you that you're nothing. We're not in the streets, we're just pooling our funds and our resources and our power. South Africa, I've said this on platforms, is a company. It was a British company initially. And then with Ernest Oppenheimer coming here and raising funding from the Rothschilds, the English bank that side, and then from JP Morgan in America, it became an English-American company, Anglo-American, which is why Anglo-American would be set up to represent those two nations. And that company would come and formalize this geographical space into South Africa. And in doing that, they set up the infrastructure to ensure that the milking of the resources here was as smooth as possible. And when there started being a bit of issues, they formalized a government. The Oppenheimers literally built what we know as government today, obviously using the model from the UK. To this day, when you look at the 2024 elections, I think 5, if I'm not mistaken, descendants of the Rothschild, of the Oppenheimers, would fund, I'm not sure if they funded the ANC this time, but they'd fund the DA, they'd fund BOSA, they'd fund the IFP, they'd fund UDM, I think they'd fund the Freedom Front Plus, I stand to be corrected, and maybe a couple of others. These guys are the ones that fund politicians, which means they still control what that is. And what government is a governance structure. It's a board of directors, an executive board for this company called Anglo-American, this South Africa company, South Africa. So at any time when the board of directors, the executive board, has got an issue on the ground, the workers are protesting, there's a problem somewhere, they're like, hey, our bosses don't believe us when we tell them. So maybe burn something so that we can be like, you see, they're complaining, so tell me what to do. Okay, give them a bit more tax. Maybe give them extra money there at Lonmin, Ramaphosa. Maybe do this. Because otherwise we don't really believe you. Carry on, man. No one is doing anything there. But I really think at the bottom, if black people were more sophisticated and more organized, there are much easier ways to protest to get this executive board of this company, South Africa, to listen to you. Tax revolt, low-hanging fruit, especially for the white middle class now. A lot of them are frustrated with service delivery. Stop paying tax. It's illegal, could get you jailed, but if you guys are united, they can't do anything. You're not in the street, you're not protesting. You're like, oh, you guys want to fix our roads? Cool, not paying tax. They will come to you. They will come and beg, please, can we talk? Don't go to work. You're not burning anything. You're not destroying anything. You're not closing the roads. You're not making it uncomfortable for other people. You're just saying, we know that company South Africa, which belongs to the Anglo and the American, relies on our labor. And we are saying the one thing that you guys forced us to be the only commodity we have, we are not giving it to you. So show us what you're going to do, if you're willing to talk or not. So I'm not happy with that as a start. National dialogue. I've been speaking about a CODESA 2.0 for a couple of years now. it would be interesting that Thabo Mbeki would speak about, a national conversation or convention type of situation. And then Cyril Ramaphosa, as the president, would spearhead it. There'd be stories about a 700 million rand budget, which when I recently spoke to Minister Gaten McKenzie, he said it's been revised to under 500 million. But apparently President Ramaphosa is saying they must revise further. The national dialogue, in summary, is incredibly disrespectful. It's going to be a waste of money. It's going to be performative and not real. It's not going to change anything. But it's being done to pacify a lot of the people that see it as something. It's a report to the people that own this country to say, well, we had a national dialogue. These were the outcomes. The same ANC at some point would do national land conversations where they went around asking people what they think of it. Nothing ever came of that. Nothing. And someone put it brilliantly. I just don't remember who it is. It could have been Mike Sham or someone else. I apologize, I'm misquoting. But they spoke about how Cyril is really good at the pacifying people with issues, in getting them to calm down with the commission of inquiry and a national dialogue. And it's so that you're distracted. When you ask him, he's like, no, but we've got the commission. It's so you're like, okay, no, I don't know. Mukwana said, no, we've launched a commission. He's just buying time. By the time his term ends, many things would never have been solved, but there would have been so many commissions to keep people distracted and not actually getting to the source of problems. South Africa doesn't need a national dialogue because everyone knows our problems. We don't need a dialogue to know we have crime issues. We don't need a dialogue to know that we have an undocumented immigrants, illegal foreigners issue. We don't need a national dialogue to know there's corruption. We don't need a national dialogue to know that tenders are destructive and are looted and there should be insourcing. We don't need a national dialogue to know that our government is privatizing state-owned enterprises to their friends and to themselves and their holding companies for when they retire. We don't need a national dialogue to know that South Africa sucks up to the US and the West, but they're trying to get into BRICS, but they're also not sure where they kind of stand. We don't need a national dialogue to know that our schooling system is rubbish, that our kids finish high school and tertiary with no real skills. We've got doctors protesting. Who would have ever thought a medical doctor, which was always deemed one of the highest professions, they're begging for jobs when we've got hospitals and clinics that are full? It's disrespectful to the ordinary South African that we're having a national dialogue. And this 700 million, or however much is going to be spent, should be getting spent in things that matter. In a year where the Minister of Finance, Enoch Godongwana, is telling us there's no money and he wants to hike up VAT. And yes, the VAT thing didn't go through, but fuel levy went up, electricity went up, so they're still knocking us in some way. We don't have money, but there's money to talk. And you guys are handpicking people who have no credentials of activism to come and sit around and take pictures and so that it will look good in the history books. Say there was once a national dialogue. It's disrespectful. And look, I will say that South Africans deserve this. South Africans don't mind, because if they did, they would do something. And by do something, I'm not talking about a coup or join the army. I'm talking about these acts of saying, I will pick up litter in my neighborhood. I will stop littering. I will patrol my neighborhood. I will make sure that we fix our roads. I will show up to my children's school and be involved and volunteer. I will ensure that my children are doing their homework. I will invest in the local soccer club. I will buy from locally owned businesses so that the money is here with us. I will vote responsibly. I will take my little bit of money and donate to the right political party. I will support the right pastor to make sure that our pastor, our preacher, our imam, our rabbi is invested in our community and solving societal and family problems. I will make sure that I follow the right king or the right chief. And I'm not just screaming Baete to someone who is doing nothing for us. And I will make sure that myself as a man, my woman, we're working together to fix gender squabbles between the two of us and teaching our children to not fight between genders. I will empower my woman, she will empower me. South Africans are not willing to do that. They will buy from foreigners, they will get their hair done from foreigners, they will vote for knowingly corrupt people, or Dak, you will buy from white people, women will vote for men, and then they'll wake up and they'll complain. Who did you vote for, Chief? You know, we don't have choice. Aha. Where did you send your money? Hafethu. Ushawupia, why don't you? Hafethu, we don't have money. Go to Koi Kuch. Don't I worked hard for this Kuch. You know you're sending money to. No one cares. No one cares.
Duduzile, Zuma. We spoke about Helen. Duduzile Zuma could be the president of South Africa if MK party emerges. I contested this with many people and I told them, guys, I'm not a Democrat myself, and what Zuma is doing, ruling by decree, I actually, even before he went into power, I actually said, I think Zuma must just do it. If Duduzile Zuma goes into power, or she misses, but she gets in a position of power. Do you know a lady called Isabel dos Santos?
Yes. Angola.
Yes. What would be so wrong for Duduzile to do that? I'm saying it because but you know all of these politically connected billionaires. What would be so? What is wrong with a picture of Duduzile being the president of South Africa or being the most powerful one? Because Helen Zille is gonna go anytime soon.
Hey son.
Yeah, I mean, it's the reality. Julius Malema says, by the way, let's credit him on the Gushies thing, because he said, if I don't wear these Breitling watches, who must wear them? Yeah. So he says, I've got the advantage of time, and Duduzile has the advantage of time over Helen Zille and stuff. Yeah. And come to think of it, what's wrong with Duduzile being the president of South Africa? And because people would say, yeah, but it's not a family business, family stock fair, umkondo wesizwe, umkondo wemdeni. What's wrong with that? Because we spoke about parachuting, because this thing of being BEC member, regional leader, and Julius Malema route of ascending to power, it's long out of the picture now.
I agree.
What's wrong with Duduzile Zuma being the president of South Africa? Because this organic way of growing leadership, it's not working.
And the ANC is very good at spitting out talented young leaders. They spit them out like nobody.
When they're just already gone, they disappear.
Yeah. I don't believe in democracy as a concept, mostly because democracy is premised on an assumption that we all generally have the same information. We're all generally politically, maybe economically, maybe even legally literate to some degree. And the reality, in my opinion, is that over 95% of people are incredibly politically illiterate, definitely economically illiterate. A lot of them struggle with understanding the law. So asking them to vote is like giving a toddler a loaded gun and saying, you can choose if you want to shoot or not. Very dangerous, and we see it now. But with the democracy that we have in South Africa, if it so happened that Umkhonto weSizwe became the majority party, or he joined the GNU at a time where they need a compromise candidate, and she was either the leader of Umkhonto weSizwe or one of the senior leaders at Umkhonto weSizwe, and it was decided that she would be the compromise candidate to be president, there would be nothing wrong with that democratically in South Africa. But in my opinion, speaking specifically about her, or before I speak about her, there's also nothing wrong with what we call nepotism. I think it's one of the tricks that the colonial minds got us into. Africans must pride themselves in uplifting their children. Wherever you have an opportunity in the company you're in, that you work for, wherever there are bursaries being given out, wherever there's a grant or funding, your children must be in the front of the queue. That must be the order of the day. But in the same breath, because you know those things, your children must also be the most qualified, because you know the criteria. So when they're looking for BEE funding or a bursary, you must be like, I know the criteria they need. You must have this qualification, you must have this experience, you must have these marks. So I'm going to make sure you get these things, but you want to be at the front of the queue. We're not going to put you at the front of the queue, meanwhile you don't meet the criteria, because that's wrong. That's corruption. And it always comes back to bite us. Because if you're putting the wrong person somewhere, it's going to destroy you. It's like your father, you have a business, your child who's a drunkard, who's a drug addict, because it's your child who's going to run the business, trust me, you're going to die a poor pensioner because you put the wrong person in charge of your business versus putting the right person. But if you're a caring father, you train your son more than any other child out there to know the business inside out, so that when they take over, it's like, it had to be this person because they know. Zuma is an example, Ramaphosa is an example, maybe Nelson Mandela becomes an example, and the ANC at large are pathetic at succession planning. I'll add the Zulu kingdom because I used to be part of the Zulu nation. Pathetic at succession planning. It is not rocket science that the sun will set on your life. It is not rocket science that you have children. Who's going to teach your children to be a king, to be a president, to be a minister, to be a member of parliament? Why are you not putting them there? Is it because you don't believe in this thing you're doing? Is it because you also shouldn't be there? Or is there another reason? And then by the time you figure Malema, non-Rosie, these are kids that decided to apply themselves in these spaces. Why should your child jump the queue because it's your child, but you know your child is not competent in the space? You're disrespecting the same space that you're in, knowing exactly what it took for you to be here. Julius was angry at a time where he had pledged allegiance to Zuma. I don't know if it was kill or die for Zuma, leading the ANC Youth League. But when the money was being dished out, who got the money? Duduzile. So Malema was like, oh, okay, this is not Ubaba Wetu. This is Ubaba Duduzile. Because we see the benefits. But yeah, when we need to protest and toy, hamban bafan. When the business deals are coming, so that stuff would hurt you. Duduzile has taken it upon herself to enter the political game. I have huge respect for her for making that decision. She's lucky in that her father was there. She's not a Lindiwe Mazibuko who was handpicked by Helen Zille, but she is a Duduzile who's able to get to her father where other women wouldn't be able to. So shout out to her. And she's been putting in work. So she's earning some type of political mileage. Whether it's to be respected or not, whether you compare it or not, is really up to you as the person. She has got a lot to do, a lot still to do if she wants us to find her credible. Right now, she's dealing with issues of emotions. Being emotional is human. It's fine. But if you want us to take you seriously as a leader, you can't be behaving like Kanye West on Twitter. Because then it's like, hey, when I will make a mistake, we'll send you overseas and then next thing you'll be tweeting and hey, this is not right. Number two, she still needs to school herself in the political game, of which, look, I believe she's a member of parliament. So I'm hoping that someone is giving her workshopping that this is how it works, this is how, and some of the mama that have been there for long, Nosiviwe, Mapisa Ngagula, Mam Angie Mutsecha, Abo Mamo Tadi Modisa, etc. They also were groomed over time in this space called government. So maybe over time she'll learn the machine. Then she's going to, if she's not lucky to be positioned to be president, because Johannesburg, where I'm from currently, had 2 mayors from Al Jamaa as a political party that I think won 1% of the votes. But because the DA and the ANC didn't want their own candidates, because they were like, let's find a compromise. If Thuthukile finds herself there, she's won the lottery, well done to her. But if she wants to be a credible president where people are like, that's my president, that's who I want to lead, she's going to have to do a lot of work on the ground. She's going to have to be very firm on certain positions in a way that speaks to the people. She's going to have to move politically in a very intelligent way. And I think it's still too early to call. But just because she's Jacob Zuma's daughter should not discount her. She should be at the front of the line, except she wasn't trained. Jacob Zuma would sit in parliament and very fairly say, I've got a lot of kids, which we all know. And he says, one of my kids loves business. You've got kids, they have different interests. Omunye wants to be a podcaster, Omunye wants to... But I've got this kid that likes business. And he happened to find some of the people, there's all these people around me. He found some of these people around me who he was willing to work with, being the Guptas. And he's worked in however way business works to build some wealth for himself and become a somebody. Not all my other kids have that interest. He did. And it cannot be that he mustn't make money in business just because he's Zuma's son. It can't be that just because Andile Ramaphosa's father is the president, he's not allowed to be rich. He must be rich. We just want to see that, yes, his father gave him an opportunity, but yeah, this guy's brilliant. The way he runs a business, the way he carries himself, you're like, hey, if it, no, he's lucky his father was there, but hey, this guy is the business. This guy's brilliant. He's not a drunkard, talking nonsense, busy touching girls' palms in a business. No, this is the real deal. So that's important. Someone that has not been seen politically, but I thought was going to be one of the future leaders of the ANC, and I'm not sure what her plan is. So I've been privileged to meet Duduzile Zuma. I've been privileged to meet this lady, is Thuthukile Zuma. She's earned her credentials from the ground, and she happens to come from true political royalty. Her father is Jacob Zuma. Her mother is Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, who potentially could have been president at some point, who at some point was the head of the African Union. So Tutu, with all the credentials, would be best placed if ever that were to come. But politics doesn't work like that. Gayton could be president. Mmusi Maimane could be president. Or Johan Steenhuisen with his matric could be president. So the game is more complex than just merit. I started off with saying I don't believe in democracy. I think if we were to begin having conversations and moving towards meritocracy, many things would solve themselves. And even at a time where Duduzile is being told, Mama, we'd like you to be president, she'd say, I'm very honored. But the most competent and capable person is that one. Everyone knows. We don't even need to think about it. Everyone knows there. And we'd be like, no, you know what, she's right. And this is why she's a good leader.
You once spoke about smart Twitter and Domko Twitter. Do you remember that?
Come on.
So you once spoke about how the problem with Twitter is, and you gave an example, and the analogy goes like, in a class you would group people differently. Yeah. And the smart kids here, the blah, blah, blah. And when you said the problem with Twitter is just about everyone who does not even understand how this was bottled will debate someone who's trying to get ahead somewhere, to explain something complex.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the problem with South African politics? The reason I'm saying so is, the African National Congress, let's talk about, for example,
Broad Church.
A Broad Church.
Yeah.
Polokwane, 4,000 delegates gave us Jacob Zuma. And I had someone complaining about, just 4,000 delegates assembled people in the National Assembly, where it's around 400 people who decided who's the president of the country. So I wanted to talk about that. This is one of the reasons that I hate democracy. So then they formed this electoral college to say, okay, Mmusi Maimane, you don't have much, pass out 2 seats, but let's make you the president. And then he becomes president. And the reason, by the way, he became he didn't want to become an independent candidate because he's not going to have much. He will, even if he's voted by 1 million people, will have 1 seat.
That's only.
That's the thing.
System is broken.
Yes, when he was chucked out of DA, he started campaigning about this electoral change and stuff. Do you think this electoral change is deliberately cooked, or is by design by those families who own South Africa? Just so, even if they wake up Jacob Zuma style, I rule by decree, the constitution says only me when I dictate that this person must be this, and they become that. It's just for them to control. And this is where the electoral system can change. What are your feelings about that?
You're 100% correct. There's nothing for me to add there. The system is by design. I told you it was formalized by the Oppenheimers. And you must understand, the Oppenheimers are capitalists. They're about making money. They're not socialists. They're not here to uplift the poorest black child. So what capitalists do where they can is they make sure that the system is always rigged in their favor. And this is just one of the ways. One South Africa, which was Mmusi Maimane and other people that were involved, were trying to push for electoral reform. At a time where they thought that could work. Because if you've got a lot of independent candidates who are maybe funded by capital, you've got more voices to serve capital versus having this ANC that seems to be infiltrated and it's problematic. But that didn't quite work out, and it's gotten pushback, of course, from the ANC, DA and others. And that's why Mmusi Maimane, Duduzile Zuma and others ended up being like, forget independent. Let me go back to the traditional political party structure. The current government we have, the current political system we have, is incredibly undemocratic. And the fact that you had to join a political party to contest was ruled unconstitutional. But there are so many things every year that are ruled unconstitutional. You almost end up asking yourself, have we ever had a truly constitutional country or government? If you're telling me this wasn't allowed, I mean, you might find in the near future, someone might actually challenge that having to pay to register a political party is unconstitutional in a country where people are poor. And the Constitutional Court might be like, hey, you're right. It should actually be free. Because if people believe that you're the best leader, why should they have to pay? Why is money exclusionary? Especially with our history. And then you're like, that means all these other elections must have been unconstitutional. It's rigged. The ANC voting system, all the way till you get to conference, of which Ramaphosa was accused of buying votes to win against Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, Nutiti Mabuza, may he rest in peace, would do a short left right at the end. It's rigged. Cyril Ramaphosa gets picked by a handful of delegates, of which it's also not all of them, who are representing some branches, who are representing certain constituencies. That is not democracy. People have called to say we'd like to vote for a president. Why not? Why can't we pick our president? Why must the president be picked in parliament by the majority? And when the TN and the ANC decide to collude, then they decide Ramaphosa is the guy because capital says so. No, we like Malema. We want Malema to be president. So what if you guys have these votes? But that's the guy we want when they're going to the UN, World Economic Forum. That's the guy that we want to send. We need to have... What do we need to have? I'm not sure what we need to have, but we need to dismantle the system. I can tell you now, and if we're not going to dismantle it, because it's very difficult and it's protected by money and global investors and owners of this country, people are going to have to find ways to detach from it. And we've got a lot of examples of people that have gotten that right. Orania, arguably Ngonyama Trust if it wanted to, maybe Moria and the likes. There's a way for you to detach where you build a fence around. I mean, Jehovah's Witnesses in South Africa, people may not know, they're not allowed to vote, just according to their church. They don't vote. I'm sure there are many other groups that also believe maybe culturally or religiously they shouldn't vote. So there are many people that are excluded. So you ask at the end of the day, who gave us this? Because even at the elections last year, we've got about 40 million people over the age of 18. Less than half voted. About 60% of eligible voters didn't vote. And of those 40% or so, 40% of those voted for the ANC. So you have to ask yourself, how many people are actually voting for the leadership in this country? And when they do vote for ANC, are they saying, I like Mbalula, I like Pando, I like Kotongwana, I like... Or are they saying, my man, I'm hungry. These people promised me a grant. I'm only voting for a grant. I know they're corrupt. I hate them as well. I know they're useless. God, I'm fit. I live in an RTP and I get a grant. That's why I voted for this guy. And then we have to believe this is the will of the people. The people wanted us to know. The people don't want you to anything. They don't know foreign policy and economic policy. They don't know any of that. They voted because you brought them to a stadium, gave them a t-shirt, gave them KFC, and you promised them Utinzo. And now we must believe that, hey, this is democracy in motion. It's rubbish. Rubbish.
I saw this documentary a few months back about the Kenyatta family from Jomo Kenyatta and stuff, how they amassed lots of wealth in Kenya and buying farms, hectares and hectares and hectares through generations. And that's why even when they were contest, they would say, but put a candidate who understands the Kenyatta family empire and stuff. And they're still in control of Kenya as we speak. I was reminded when the Comrade Supra's land parcels were revealed. He's got like that man, they say he owns Northwest.
Supra Maumapelo.
Supra Maumapelo. Rawe pilot. So his son was a pilot. He organized his son to be a pilot. So I spoke to someone at Thuthukile. I said to him, Wayne Yunis, I said 66%. This is what the spear organizations have, ANC, EFF, and MK. They've got 66%. All of them, they tell us that they want the land back. I mean, just these three of them, and with this other aligned Black Caucus, yes, they could just give us this thing.
100%.
Why are they not doing it? Is it because they are funded by a common person who tells them not to. You said exactly. Do you believe that? Do you believe that? Because I tell people, even if we were to change ANC, whoever would dislodge ANC out of power will be funded by the same people who are funding ANC.
100%.
So the status quo will remain. Is this thing of land, is this a mirage? We're never ever going to get there. Are we ever? Is there any revolution that ever will it ever even take place?
There's a note I wanted to make earlier because people may not know, and for anyone who's interested in the education, Isabella dos Santos would be the daughter of Eduardo dos Santos, who was the president of Angola. And she became the wealthiest woman, if not the wealthiest person in Angola, and also became the wealthiest woman in Portugal, because Angola is a Portuguese colony, and some of their business interests would get them into Portugal. So it's that whole conversation of, if you were to use the South African example, President Jacob Zuma, you find out that Duduzile Zuma is the wealthiest man in South Africa. He's like a Patrice. And you find out that he's also the wealthiest man, let's say, in Russia, as an example. And last I checked, her assets were all frozen because after her father left office and he passed away, they were accused of corruption and all this funny dealing, and how she built her wealth was apparently through all this political maneuvering. The first important thing about the land conversation is most people don't know what the breakdown of land in this country is. We've got a land audit. It's the most official audit we have, or data that we have. And when you look at the data, obviously politicians will always drive the propaganda of 72% of land is owned by white people. And they're only talking about registered farmland. When you look at the total land of South Africa, 122 million hectares, close to 15% is owned by the state, of which a lot of it was meant to be redistributed to the people, but they lease it to comrades and the like. Close to about 14% is under tribal ownership. Ngonyama Trust, just on its own, with Zille as the trustee, is at 2.8 million hectares. It's a third of KZN. Then there's land in the Eastern Cape, there's land in Mpumalanga, there's land in Limpopo. I think there might be land in the Free State, etc. There's a lot of land, almost 14%. Just those two alone come up to almost 30% under black control and decision making. Never mind black land owned by black people that bought the land themselves, residential. The other land that's difficult to quantify is land that's owned by trusts, companies, and non-profit organizations. There isn't a demographic breakdown, but if ever there's a black company that owns land, it will fall under there. So that's the first important thing. The second important thing is land and jobs have become the script that feeds into the minds of people, so that whenever you ask them, what do you want? You want jobs, you want land. That's not what you want. What you actually want is you want a lot of money so you can buy yourself a nice house and your kids can go to a good school and you can just chill at home. That's actually what you want if I actually broke it down. But because that's what the politicians repeat over and over and over and over, when you get asked, it becomes the answer that you think everyone should say. People don't want land and people actually don't want jobs. Let me start with jobs because we speak about land. A couple of generations ago, Africans in South Africa never had jobs. We had 100% unemployment, the way they measure employment, because we weren't working for anyone and for any company. Our forefathers, our foremothers had pieces of land. They worked the land. They planted, they had livestock, etc. They didn't need jobs. The British colonial system had to force the spatial planning of land and the livestock and adding of tax to get our fathers to go work. Our fathers didn't need to work. They didn't need money for it. What do you need money for in the villages? Nothing. And now we're in this system now where, because we started there, now the thing is we need jobs. Don't you want a job? Yes, we need jobs. I'm going to school. We don't need jobs. You need skills. And you need land. You don't even need to own it. You can lease it. And you need access to resources, equipment, a river, maybe some livestock, maybe some pieces of machines, so that you can build a business, create something, farm, build a property, whatever the case may be. That's what you need. But the people that run this country, politicians, business, that's not the mandate that they were given. We don't want jobs. The easiest way to also answer this is, if I gave the average person 10 million rand, would they go to work? Answer is no. But you want a job? No, I don't want a job. I want money. Oh, you want money? Of course. I give you 10 million Zimbabwean dollars. And then I give you a big home, a nice car, some land, some vegetables. And I'm like, choose. Here's money. Here's real things. You're like, oh, really? I want the real things. I'm like, oh, so you want money. What you want are these things here. And part of these things is where now we get to the land. People don't want land. How I know this is because the people that have land leave the land.
Keep selling it.
Never mind selling it. There's the tribal land. A lot of those guys come to the cities and they live in shacks, cramped up like cockroaches. But back home, they left hectares of land. Come holiday season, just like Zimbabweans, they also go back home to Emakaya, to Ezlalini. They Bigville, Nongoma, Msinga, wherever you come from. If they really wanted land, they wouldn't be here, living like rats. They don't want land. They just want a better quality of life. And it's worse when you've been deprived of livestock. It's worse when you don't know how to farm. It's worse when you've tasted this material world of wearing these clothes and eating a pizza and calling a Uber Eats and driving a nice car and using Wi-Fi and watching DSTV. Obviously, those things our forefathers didn't have. We've tasted those things. We want them now. And to access those things, you need money. And to get money, if you don't own a business, then you have to get a job and work for someone. And that's why we're here now. People don't want land. And the politicians were never given the mandate to change the constitution. Thabo Mbeki had a 2/3 majority. And to what you're saying, even the EFF offered Zuma their percentage to say, let's change the constitution. They didn't do it. And I know the EFF also wasn't being genuine. And as you're saying now, the so-called black parties, including ATM, PAC, I may be forgetting others, they could tomorrow collude and say, we're changing the constitution, we want to give people more land. They won't do it. Some of them have got so much land, these politicians, they don't know what to do with it. They've got too much land, they're living comfortably. Animal farm, my man, for the average person, you have to be crazy like Steve Biko, Sobukwe, you have to be crazy like Sheikh Ovara, Thomas Sankara, where I'm like, here's a nice car. Here's all the money you'll ever need. And you're like, no, I want to fix for my people. They're like, no, I must kill this one. This one is a problem.
The last one. So we've got a series here on the channel about people who went to exile and come back and how disappointed are they. One of the most difficult things when a Penuel is identifying who is a traitor, like just a traitor. So Zulenzima Vavi puts it very easy and he makes it very easy to understand. There's a figurative line, he calls it the picket line. So if anyone is on that side, it means he's no longer with us. So that person is a sellout, is a traitor. And you could have many examples if you use that Zulenzima Vavi analogy. So people, he says people that we went to strike with, he said Penuel Maduna and stuff, we were with them when we pushed away this thing of tax. Now they're this side, they're enforcing it. People badly politically, they know who traitors are. Yeah. But each and every day they vote for these traitors. By that definition, of course, and it's very easy why Lone Min had to deal with people. It's very easy. Yeah. You said Olapilo to stand for black people anymore. You are just tired. Yeah. What is it about African people that disappoints you? Because you gave a lot of examples and one of them is say they will go and vote for something and then turn back and complain about the same thing. And you are hated for that. What is it that a black person should do?
You support the All Blacks?
No.
Why are you wearing a New Zealand All Blacks jersey?
Just so you can ask me that question. Oh. And I know it takes a lot of people bad, like maybe the diehard fans by Springboks sure. and stuff. And I know people coming from Cape Town would like to deliberately say, because you don't want us, we go to the All Blacks. So I thought, okay, let me wear this. And every time they play, I feel joy whenever they play, because I mean the Maoris, the All Black story, it's almost like the West Indies Test cricket team. Yeah, it's a pride of a nation being seen to be doing something, and the native New Zealanders, they seem to feel represented by the Maoris. And when African people who loved rugby could not find expression within the Springboks, they chose the All Blacks. And I was like, I'm not even involved here, but let me just choose a side.
Hey,
yeah,
that's why.
But I don't have anything strong besides that. I love the color black. I don't have anything deep.
I love the color blue.
Yeah.
I've been supporting the All Blacks ever since I seriously started watching rugby in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only in the last couple of weeks that I've now changed allegiance and I now support the Springboks. So I've always been an All Black supporter. So just asking.
So to me, the reason I'm saying it's not even deep is I would clap even when this
Springboks plays.
Yeah, plays. So because it's not deep for me. But like I say, it's a good story to tell.
Yeah.
And I think it takes a lot of people wrong.
Are you a sellout? Are you a trader?
No, I'm not.
There's a picket fence, Baba. Once you're wearing an All Black jersey.
So, I'm teaching my kids that you could wear a Kaizer Chiefs shirt today, when tomorrow you could still wear Orlando Pirates.
Correct.
Yeah, because I don't need this loyalties for me. It's the
This is sports. This is not politics.
Yeah,
economic.
Yeah, so I can change anytime. I'm not worried. Yeah, I can wear Province jersey and still go to Devon and wear Sharks. I don't know. I didn't sign any deal with anyone. Yeah,
they're not paying you.
Yeah, they're not paying me. So solutions for South Africa, especially for black people.
One of the people that would frustrate me, speak about Zwelinzi Mavavi and you reference to Penuel Maduna. Very wealthy gentleman now. I think he was qualified lawyer, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, there's all the other names. Saki Zoma, Mziko Malo. I think Lazarus Zim at some point. Of course, your Patrice Mutsipes, your Cyril Ramaphosa's. Many others. Dr. Anna Mokhokong. I think maybe Daphne Nkosi, if I'm not mistaken. There's a lot of big beneficiaries that have become quite well off. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them have disappeared. Mm-hmm. They're quiet. They don't make noise. They're eating. Utiwa, it's rude to speak while you're eating. Mm-hmm. The Freedom Charter was drafted, and most people don't know that there was a lot of Jewish contribution to the Freedom Charter. If you ever go look it up on Wikipedia, you'll see the authors of the Freedom Charter. It's not just a bunch of black people. There's white people there, sadly, but it is what it is. The Freedom Charter had ideals, which we've also been force-fed that those were black ideals. They weren't really black ideals. To be honest, it's very clear to figure out what black people wanted. Black people lived a certain way before the colonizers came here, and the colonizers disrupted them. So as an order of business, it's just leave us alone. So number one, you took our land, especially with the Afrikaners and apartheid and forced removals, give us back our land. And if ever you took our livestock, give us back our livestock. And if ever there's something of ours that you took, or there's something that you're denying us, stop. If when we want to engage in the economy, we'll choose. If we don't want, we don't want. If we want to live on the farm and just farm goats, that's got nothing to do with you at all. If you want to go mine gold, we'll mine gold. And if you want to dig like zamazamas with a shovel, leave us alone, because we're not bugging you. You can bring your machine. Leave us alone because you disrupted us. Don't come with your Christianity and your English and your Africa. We don't want it. We were living fine. We'll fight amongst each other. We had our own fights and wars. Leave us alone. That was the first thing. But at the time, the fight became became one liberation, and then it became black people want to sit at the table with the British and the Afrikaners to decide where this country is going and what. Then it became we want the land, then we want jobs, crime must go down, abahambe, the illegal foreigners must. But at the core, it was just that. What people wanted was the Freedom Charter. And the Freedom Charter had some ideals, and in those ideals that were sold to people, it was, this is how black people are going to be active in the economy and politics, etc. The land was a non-negotiable. The economy, having access to the mainstream economy, was a non-negotiable. Nationalization was a non-negotiable. And the first problem came with that. And the guys at Anglo, I mean, this has been documented now, the guys at Anglo guys at Sanlam, guys at Old Mutual. There were a couple of companies that were really white monopoly capital at the time. The Rembrandt Group, what's Remgro today, the Rupert family. They would come together and they were like, no, we can't have this. These guys can protest and burn things and there's sanction, but no, we can't have. Number one, sanctions are a problem because now we're struggling to do business. We don't care about black people and black upliftment. We care that our businesses are struggling to make money. How do we make this go away? Who are the role players? Those are the role players. Those guys are being a problem. Watch out. Okay, let's speak to them. What do they want? They want to take over politically and they want to nationalize. They want the land. No, that's stupid. We can't have that. Let's negotiate. There would be the historic meeting. Was it in Zambia? I think Lusaka will be Zambia. I think. Where Abu Mbeki and all these guys would meet with capital in South Africa. The apartheid government wasn't happy about this, but it happened.
Even in Harare, Mugabe hosted them.
Even in Harare. But I think Kenneth Kaunda, KK, would host them in Zambia. That was one of the first problems. Some of the conversations that O.R. Tambo, who are highly revered, would have with British mining barons from across the continent, very problematic, which is how the Tambo family ends up owning a home in Sandhurst, which is how the Mandela family ends up owning a home in Houghton. Today, we've got similar Abu Malema owning houses in Hyde Park, but we're not allowed to ask questions of how these things come about. We need you to change this thing. Let's negotiate. You guys are angry? Cool. We see you, we hear you. We're about making money. We don't want disruption. People hurt you. We're so sorry they hurt you. It wasn't us. Trevor Noah said this on a podcast. It's never anyone's fault. I wasn't there. You know, my family were activists. Everyone else was good. Then you negotiate, and in the negotiation, you've got the smart black guys, or Thabo Mbeki, the economists. You've got Trevor Manuel that come in. You've got the union guys who are like, no, man. And somewhere in that, guys get to taste the good life. They sit with the Oppenheimers. I think the house was Brenthurst, of which the foundation is named after. They sit these guys and they're like, look, you guys want to come back from exile. We know you guys don't have jobs, you don't have money. We'll give you places to stay. Or Zuma, or Mbeki, or Mandela would be given flats in suburbia to live. Guys were given jobs without credentials, without qualifications. And then they started having these conversations of, look, we're going to give you a piece of the pie because we need you guys to understand what it is that we're dealing with here. We don't think you understand. You know, nationalize, want the land. But you know what? Let's give you a slice. You'll see from there what's actually at stake. And the BE Commission was set up, which also was a project of Anglo, Sanlam, and others. Sanlam, I think, came up with the first big BEE deal, of which Patrice would be one of the beneficiaries. But you'd have the organizations, Abo Nail, Double Doctor, Ntato Mutlana, and the likes. What black people had fought for, what black people had died for, what black people had gone to jail for, was sold for shares, sold for nice jobs, sold so that comrades could live in the suburbs and their kids could go to private schools, in exchange for those same people keeping everyone else at bay. The one thing they negotiated for Mandela to be like, look, these guys are going to be angry, we need to give them something. And you know, when people are angry, you give them something. So the some things became social welfare. RTP houses, of course, even to this day. Grants. Of course, you've got your free healthcare, your free schooling. Those things don't do much, but they keep people quiet in this country. And whatever was fought for was forgotten. They sold out because they never consulted the people. They never asked the people. When the shares and the jobs were being dished out, they didn't share them with the people. They kept them for themselves. Umamlindi was Sisulu, a legacy of Ubaba Umama Albertina and Ubaba Walter Sisulu, would speak about this concept. She wrote an open letter about, we've got overnight millionaires and billionaires. Kanjani, chief. We were not fighting together last week in the dust. Now you're in a Mercedes-Benz saying, you know, the thing about the economy and I need to read financial statements. I've got a board meeting, so I have to... Kanjani baba, ngoba besibamba ibhamu sonke.
Someone was sold.
But again, the people weren't asking for shares and what. They were saying we want the land that was taken from us, our livestock, and leave us alone and allow us to engage the economy as and when. And any reparations from how you exploited our labor, just do that. The ANC got everyone to forget about all of that, and nothing has changed since. The reason I would get tired of black people is because there would be so many solutions for black people to, outside of politics, get the things they claim they want, like land. You want land? I can take you to KZN, you can get 10 hectares now. We can go and thank a chief. Thank him with maybe a bit of money. Where in KZN? Where in K? No, Baba, you said you want land. Now you selective. No, there's land there. What are we going to do with that? It's got nothing. Oh. All land on earth started off with nothing. Human beings build on it. So we'll build. I don't have skills. We don't have money. I'm like, you don't want land. You don't want land. When you say small things like buy from your people, work for your people, go back, even to Ikasi, which was a labor camp. Go back to Ikasi and aggressively send your kids there. And if you've got school fees for 10,000 Rand a month at a private school, take that 10,000 Rand and put it in the Kasi school. If you've got money for medical aid, take that 3,000 Rand and donate it to the clinic, so that people don't want to do that. So Otaki, who are complaining, don't want to do the bare minimum to uplift themselves. And any good leader who really wants to help black people is mentally unwell. You have a mental illness because you're trying to wake up someone who is not sleeping, someone who's pretending to be sleeping. That person will never wake up. That's not what they care about.
Talking about that, but I'm gonna drop him with one. You just choose one. Don't motivate. Don't do anything. You choose a one. Ratswalla. R. Kelly, Bill Cosby, or P. Diddy. Choose one. White Chaba, Mashiani, politically incorrect. The Penuel, the black pen. He's afraid to be very controversial.
I've got an answer. I just need to explain.
But you don't have to defend. Just pick one. R. Kelly, Bill Cosby, P. Diddy. But you want to explain?
Yeah.
You want to decorate your answer. Why you are choosing these people who society deems as
predators.
Yeah, predators.
Bill Cosby, because outside of the scandals, he created a really good template for the black family.
In film or in reality? In the real world? In film. Okay.
Cosby Show, yeah.
Okay. He modeled the black family.
It inspired a lot of black families to be good. And you can't take that away from them. But the predatory stuff, true, not true, people say that it was linked to him wanting to get involved in the media business. That one guy, no. But for what he did in inspiring the model for the black family, have to give it to him. Versus the other two guys. Go to R. Kelly's music. Come on, man, Kels. But to Bill Cosby, R. Kelly made good music. Bill Cosby created a template for what a healthy black family looks like. And that's something you can't take away from him.
Machine politically incorrect. Let's leave it there. Why?